Hi, everybody. I'm Emma. I'm a media producer and a facilitator at the Future Perfect Project. We provide free arts programming to queer youth, and every Monday night we do FPP Live, which is interviews with queer icons, artists, just talking about how they came into their identity, how they came into their queerness, how they realized they were artists. And we hope to inspire you, and we hope to inspire any young person watching to come make art with us. We host free arts workshops of all sorts all the time. We have a comics workshop going on right now. I'm going to be leading a songwriting workshop very soon. And sky's the limit if you are a queer young person between the ages of 12 and 22. And if you're looking for queer community that values writing and art and self-expression, you're at the right place. We have a really cool guest tonight named Seth Sanker, and I'm really excited to meet them. I've been a fan for a while. Incredible photographer and model and artist and turning looks all the time. And I'm excited. It's going to be a good one. Hi, Jazz. Hi, Kai. Hey, Celeste. I'm here for you, Eyeball. Love that. We got a lot of folks here. Hi, Steph. I don't know if Dylan's still here, but hi, Dylan. What's going on, everyone? I'm getting some highs back. Good to be here. Do a dance. I think people would leave the live if I did a dance, Dylan. Anyway, if anybody watching is a singer, we are doing an incredible songwriting workshop that's starting in March, but applications are open now. So any artist, DM us. There's a place for you here. And Seth is here, so I'm going to invite them to join the live. Hi!
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us and inspire the queer youth of today.
Oh yeah, of course.
Awesome. So, welcome everybody. Yes, Dylan, Seth has arrived. The comments are going wild. Actually DM'd us being like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this interview. So it's really cool that you're here, and we're going to talk all about queer stuff and art stuff, and I'm really excited. So the way we usually introduce ourselves in our workshops with the youth we work with is like this. I'm going to do it first, and then you're going to do it. So I'm Emma, and she's feeling curious in Philadelphia. So it's like name, pronoun, feeling globally where you are.
Okay. I'm Seth, and he or they, either one works, is feeling kind of tired in Southern California.
Nice. So we ask all of our guests this too. How do you identify on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum? And is queer a word you like to use?
Sure. So a lot of the times I actually do identify as queer, just because I feel like even in like within the queer community, like we put so many like parameters on certain identifiers, and queer for me is the most like fluid and like can mean anything you kind of want it to mean. So I do say I'm queer. With that, in what that I guess kind of means for me is I'm gay-ish. So maybe like I'd say like 70% gay. The rest I'm not sure. Still discovering, still figuring it out. And then as far as like gender spectrum goes, I do identify as a cis man actually, but I do say like I'm non-conforming or gender non-conforming, but I do still identify with like being a man, but obviously I do not conform to a lot of gender stereotypes,
Right.
so I do obviously want to make sure people know that too, because I feel like, I don't know, not that like cis men get a bad rap, but like, you know, just to let the people know.
You're special, sis man.
Exactly. I got a little bit of sauce.
A little bit of sauce. Yeah, it's really interesting what you said about parameters. I feel like there can be a lot of gatekeeping in the queer community, and how I feel like with your fashion is a big way that you're dismantling that. When did that start? When did you start saying like F gendering clothes?
So I've always owned like random like femme pieces in my wardrobe. Nothing like honestly, nothing like dresses or skirts, but like maybe like pants or like a top that I saw that was like, oh, like that could be a boy's top. So I'm gonna get it. So like honestly, it's been like that for a while, and I have own a lot of female shoes because my feet are smaller, so they fit better. But not until honestly lockdown. So maybe like April, May. I actually started doing it quite a bit. Just because I feel like everyone was so like bored and didn't have much to do. And I mean, I've always had the mentality that like you can wear whatever you want. Like clothing doesn't really mean much. I mean, for me, it can mean a lot for other people, and obviously it's so affirming for certain people. But for me, it's like it's closed to me. I'm like I can throw on whatever I want and do whatever I want. So at the beginning of quarantine, I was like, let's just like play around a little bit, like see what I can do. I'm not going anywhere, so I can like try out my outfits inside and like not feel embarrassed or like weird. So I did that for a bit, and then I started posting them on TikTok. And people started to be like really receptive, and I was like, oh, cool, like this is super fun. So it honestly is decently new for me, or at least like new for me doing it like publicly. And it's been a really interesting journey to like go on publicly and like allowing everyone to like kind of be a part of it. And like even in the beginning when people were asking like my pronouns and like how I identify and like whatever, blah, like all that kind of stuff, I was like, honestly, I don't really know yet. Like I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. I decided to put this out because I'm doing it, and I feel like a lot of my life's on the internet. So I was like, well, why not just throw it out there? But yeah, so it is relatively new, but it's good stuff. I really am enjoying exploring it, like with the internet.
I love that. You're like bringing the internet along with you as you discover this piece of yourself. That's so funny. Everyone's like, "What are your pronouns?" And you're like, "I don't know. I just put on the dress."
Yeah, exactly.
That's so awesome. Yeah, and also interesting that like you felt safe to do this journey indoors. Like
Yeah,
it's really unsafe for like people with facial hair to be in a dress because people are transphobic as hell.
yeah,
And yeah, being able quarantine is horrible, and it offered you a space to discover this part of yourself.
totally. No, yeah, I was. It's funny because I mean, on the internet, you're obviously going to get a certain amount of hate
Right.
from the people that are like will never say anything to your face. But even so, like with what I got, I was like, I can't even imagine if I got any of this in person, like how much it would have affected me. So luckily, I feel like having done it online and like getting like the hate online has like helped me like equip for it in person, because I have recently like been going to the grocery store and more like femme outfits or like just doing like random stuff in a femme fit, and I'm like, oh, this is fine. Like I don't feel weird about it. Like people do look, but I'm like, I've had death threats before on the internet. Like, I don't even care.
Yeah. It's like you had your soft launch of wearing
Yeah,
a dress,
exactly.
which obviously to you and I isn't a big deal. And I'm interested in like how your growing up was. You said you've always kind of owned femme pieces. When was the moment that you were like, I feel like I'm kind of living in the future in terms of not gendering clothing? Because that's what we're all about. We think like our young people we work with are like in a future that hasn't arrived because they're just so like lit and so like
Yeah.
I use any pronouns. Like I'm gonna try a new name this week. Like they have so much freedom. So I'm wondering if you felt like you had a freedom when you were younger.
Yeah, so I think like yes and no. So in my head, I always had it like I was like, oh, I can kind of do whatever. I've had long hair. Like I had long hair most of my life. Like people used to call me a girl when I was a kid, so I was like, meh, whatever. And I've always had like decently feminine-ish mannerisms and like whatever. So a lot of me growing up like in my head, I was like, oh, I can kind of do whatever. Like it wasn't a thing that I learned, like I thought in my own head as far as like parameters and like these like boxes we put people in. But I actually did grow up super religious and Christian. My dad's a pastor. So like my outside world definitely had it a lot, but I literally remember dressing up in like my stepmom's clothes constantly. She had like these thigh-high boots that I would steal whenever she left the house. And I would just like walk around the house in them. Like my siblings knew and everything. It was just like my parents. But yeah, they like I remember my little brother the other day, he was like, "Do you remember when you used to take our stepmom's stuff?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Look how far we've come. Now I do it on the internet." But yeah, I was like, that was probably when I was like 10 or 11. Like I was really young when I started. Um, I don't like the word cross-dressing, but it's kind
Right.
of the easiest one to kind of say for most people to know. But yeah, so like 10, 11-ish. And I was like, oh yeah, like I love femme clothes. And then even after that, I decided I wanted to end up being a fashion designer um, for women's wear.
Whatever that means, right?
Yeah, I'm like, whatever that is. But even then, like, I would design stuff on myself. Like, I was just like, okay, like, I'm just gonna do it on me. It's gonna be the easiest way for me to figure it out. And like that sort of thing. And I went to school for fashion design, made a bunch of clothes for me when I was in college. But yeah, so I've honestly been doing it for a really long time. Again, not publicly, like in my own head, I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm gonna do and this is kind of who I'm gonna be. But I don't think I was truly ready to do it publicly until recently, but I've always been like, oh yeah, clothes are clothes are for everybody. Everyone deserves clothes.
Yeah. What was like, do you think it was being in quarantine and being like bored, I guess, that made you say like I have nothing to lose, I'm gonna start posting? Because that's how I found you, and I was like need to meet this person.
I would say yeah. I mean quarantine, and then also I think being on TikTok. I tell a lot of people like TikTok is like one of the wildest places I've ever been in my life, especially being an like a younger millennial, but still growing up like decently millennial, and like stuff like this didn't happen, and like what are pronouns and like all these other things. I think going on TikTok and just seeing like queerness being celebrated so much and like brownness being celebrated so much, and there's like so much stuff that I'm not used to on like Instagram, or like it really wasn't on like Instagram yet, or like other like mainstream social media accounts, that I was like, oh shoot, like these kids are really just out here like rooting for everybody, and it's honestly so wild. And I was like, maybe it's my time, like maybe I'm just gonna like just go out there and do it. And again, like they were all like, yeah, like we love to see it. And I was like, holy crap, like this is unreal. Especially like, I don't know, growing up in the early 2000s, like never in my life would I've ever thought such a thing would even be happening for anyone. I think I wrote in one of my posts, I don't know, a little bit ago, and I was like, it's seriously like unreal, like beyond belief to me that I'm doing what I'm doing, like especially as like a pastor's kid, as a brown pastor's kid specifically, because I feel like the brown community really does um, suppress queerness. But it's been really wild, and I think TikTok and the combination of quarantine and being home and really having nothing to lose and nothing else to do, and trying to find ways to make money and just trying to figure different things out, really did kind of push me to be a lot more open and just try new things for sure.
Totally. Yeah, I also love that. I remember you posting a bit ago, like people are like, you should put your photo creds, and you're like, me. It's me. Like that's like Mark by Mark Jacobs by Mark by Seth
Yep.
by Seth. And so I think that's really cool because oftentimes, like, as you know, being a photographer, like a straight photographer photographing a queer person, or even like a white queer person photographing a brown queer person, like it's through their gaze. And so how does
Yeah.
it feel like your own artistic director?
It's honestly amazing, and it's like it's been awesome and it's been horrible. um, because like when other people ask me to take photos of me, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, like I'd love to. And they have like these really cool things they want to do, and then we do it, and then I see them, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like them as much because I'm so used to doing it all myself. Like I know exactly like where like my angles are, like what lighting looks good on me, like what lighting's gonna do well with like my outfit that day, or like the concept. So like I'm so used to doing it all myself now that I think I've like spoiled myself. and it's like hard for me to shoot with other people, but I really do. I love it. Like I love having like complete and total creative control of it all. I'm a Virgo, so I'm like decently controlling, and like I really like details and I like things my way. So it's been very nice to have that. And even like it's been such a journey even on like my photography side, because I never really did like indoor stuff, or a lot of the stuff that I do now I didn't use like artificial light or any of this stuff. Like a lot of what I'm posting on social media is relatively new to me. Um, but it's been really nice to just like explore it and do it like on myself instead of having to do it on someone else.
Hmm.
Or like if they're paying me and like not doing it well enough, it's been nice to just experiment with all this stuff on me. And yeah, and have all these like the creative control, and also like there's nothing to be insecure about when you're shooting by yourself. Like you're not gonna be like, oh, I hope they don't see my like fat rolls or like whatever, blah blah blah. Like you're just like, okay, like I can just like vibe with myself. Like there's
Yeah,
really nothing.
get the fat
Ex-
rolls of thick. They're amazing.
exactly. I'm like whatever happens today happens. Like I don't feel weird at all. Like it's just like yeah, people have been like asking to see like a live shoot or something. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, because sometimes it's just for me, you know? It's just
Yeah.
like it's like my little self-care like therapy time with myself, just like take these pictures and do all of this. But no, it's been really nice to just have an idea and be able to do it with me, instead of like having an idea and then like reaching out to models and reaching out to other people to try and figure stuff out. It's been super cool.
Yeah. Not to say like I'm totally like pro collaboration, and I'm so pro like being a multi hyphenate. Like we work with a lot of young people who are interested in writing and directing and
Totally.
like making music and like a bunch of stuff. So what do you have any advice for like the young queer person, young queer artist who feels like they have to choose or pick a lane? Because you definitely don't, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny because I was even maybe that way like the beginning of quarantine. Like I was like, I have to figure out exactly what I'm doing and like niche down and do all these things, which I mean truly a lot of people do, marketing people and like everything do say to like niche down, like whatever. But even like so I'm like I feel like I'm niched down. But I can still like do all of these things. I can still like do everything I want, but I still like I just have my quote unquote lane of being like queer, brown, gender, all this stuff. But for me, in the beginning of course, I was like, okay, either this has to be like a self-portrait account or like a fashion account or like a whatever. Like I really need to figure out what I need this to be. And it wasn't until I just started posting kind of literally whatever. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like test out what I can do here. And every like truly, even my friends are always like, Seth, they don't care. Like literally anything you post, they'll like they like your personality, like they like you. So I tell a lot of people that are like kind of like I don't know like which lane to go. I'm like honestly just sell yourself. Like that's like what most people are looking for, especially now like with TikTok or all these other things. Like it's personalities that are getting big. It's not like what they're doing. Like everyone's like, oh my gosh, I like love this person. Like even like Charlie D'Amelio, for an example. Like sure she danced
Queer.
fine. She danced all right in the beginning of this. But now like she literally does like nothing, but everyone just loves her. Like she can do whatever she wants, but everyone's obsessed with her because they just like her person. Like they like how she exists. So I'm just like, if you just sell you and kind of yourself, everything else will just kind of come with it. And as long as you're like genuine and true to whoever you are, like whatever followers or fans or whatever you have or have gotten from being true to yourself, they'll stay forever. Like even I have like weird things. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I cut my hair or if I like look more masculine, like if people will stop following me. But I'm like, I need to stop. Like I'm like
Yeah.
whatever. I'm like whatever. Like even if they do stop following me, that's fine. But I really have garnered like a quote unquote fan base that really does kind of just like me for me. Like they're just like, oh yeah, it's like honestly, truly, whatever you do, we're here for. So I just think selling the hell out of you and your personality is always like number one in any like marketing, especially now, just like with the way everything's kind of becoming informal with TikTok or just like with the internet in general.
But I like also how you said art is your therapy, and so you don't want to share all of it. And I think there's a lot of
Totally.
pressure to sell and like monetize our art. So you consider yourself an artist, right?
Totally.
And so like what does that mean to you to have art as that therapy and as that release?
Um, Honestly, like even like right now, kind of like what I said earlier, like really truly like what I'm doing right now, my art is really just me like exploring this other side of me that I really haven't for 26 years. Like I'm just like, okay, cool. I've never thought like of having gender conversations with myself because truly I've always been like, oh yeah, I'm a boy, it's fine. But it's been such an interesting thing to have right now and like explore through photography or through fashion or through videos and TikTok, um, to have like a almost tangible thing like right in front of me, to kind of like see my journey. Because even looking back on what I did at the beginning of quarantine or what I like thought I was comfortable wearing in the beginning of quarantine, as far as like even femme stuff, and then seeing like what I'm wearing now, it's kind of insane. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
wild. So it's been such a cool, it's an amazing thing to have like a timeline of your journey, especially for me, like doing photography. So like seeing it in that way, I love it, and it's just really nice to have something other than like, I mean, obviously going to therapy is beautiful, but to have something you can do with yourself, like just to sit outside and be like, okay, today we're just gonna explore a little bit, and you don't even have to share it. Like there's so many shoots or videos or like anything I do that like I don't even post or share or do anything with, but for me, like it was like a release for that day. It felt good.
Mm.
I got my serotonin in, and it was just a good artistic expression to have. So I mean, it's been really nice, and even before, because I actually did mainly wedding photography before the pandemic, um, and for me that was more like work. I never really took
Right.
time to like have it for fun or like to do things for fun. So it's been really nice to like get back into my passion and like have much more just like more me in it. So it's been really nice, honestly.
Yeah, and you have this beautiful like time capsule of you becoming more free with
Totally.
your gender. Also, someone wrote in the chat, having a science class, but this is more important. Yes, people talking is more important than science. This is science
True.
in a way.
Truly.
Um, so it's cool that like you are that example of a very like free and confident queer person to a lot of young people on TikTok, and they were almost your example that kept you motivated. What was your first example of a queer person? Like, do you remember?
I'm like trying to think back. I honestly think some of the first queerness I saw was maybe I think I remember scrolling through our cable channels. And it was, I mean, I think it still exists, but it was probably just Logo TV, honestly, was like the first thing I ever like accidentally stumbled upon. And I was like, oh crap. Like I was like, what is this? Like these people have a whole channel. And like honestly, like like watching Queer as Folk as like bleh as that show is. But like as a kid, it was like such a wild thing to see on normal television.
Right?
Um, so that was a big thing, and also I was one of those lovely children. Not so much as an adult anymore. Unfortunately got out of it, but I was really into like anime, manga, and like that sort of thing. And I feel like in that realm, there's just like queerness everywhere. um, so I think that was like a big place that I saw it as well, just like in like comics and manga and stuff as well as a kid. But yeah, I was not probably yeah, I think Queer as Folk was honestly probably one of the first times I was like, oh, that's gay. Like that's like what's happening here.
Yeah, like you were saying, like TikTok being so instrumental in finally seeing like queer brown people celebrated. I feel like a lot of our first glimpses of queerness or gayness are like, oh, it's so close. Like that almost reminds me of me, but not
Yeah.
quite.
No, totally. A lot of the messages that I get, or like a lot of the comments or whatever, are from people that are like, it's like wild to see someone of color and like that does what you do. Like I'm not used to seeing that. It's always like white, attractive, skinny humans that obviously like get a lot of the limelight. So like I really do love seeing you or like seeing something that is like much closer to me. There's even like cis women that reach out. They're just like, honestly, like you're probably one of the closest things to me that I've seen, and it's just been so nice to like see you do what you want. Like you've helped me so much and like have this freedom and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's been cool.
That's great. Yeah, it's great that you can be that for someone instead of them having to watch Logo. And
Seriously, logo's gross.
so we are, as an organization, like I hinted at earlier, we think young people we meet are living in a future that has not yet arrived. So I'm wondering what your perfect future is.
That's a good question. I think for me mainly it would just be like not like having to question any of this. Like it I've always told people that like I hate the concept of coming out. Like I really don't like it. And I barely like the concept of pronouns. Like I do understand like that they're affirming and that obviously it's good for people to have. But I like don't like having to be like, these are my pronouns and like have to explain why I use them. I would very much so love to have just a world where like I don't have to explain anything. Like it's just like, okay, that's it, done. Like I have to be like, oh, I'm whatever, or like, hi parents, I'm gay. It's just like, okay, cool, here's my boyfriend. Are we okay?
Right.
Like like that is honestly kind of the world I hope we'll eventually live in. And I think we're honestly close. Like a lot of these kids are just kind of just like gay from jump. Like it's just like, okay, cool, and that's it. And I don't think like too many people are questioning it. I mean, except their parents, but like their peers and stuff are just like, okay, cool, and like that's it. So it's been such an interesting thing to see from like when I was a kid. And even I tell a lot of people like I didn't really come out like a formal coming out. I just kind of let people know as it happened, or if they asked it, like, oh yeah, that's true, or they heard from other people. So yeah, I think that's kind of my perfect future is like when we no longer have to like explain our queerness to anybody and just like for it to just be.
Oh, I will join you there. I'm really excited. I have a 17-year-old sister. I'm 24, and it's funny having a sister who's like the same age as the youth we serve, and she's straight. But when I came out, she was like, "Yeah, everyone in my grade's bi. Cool." Like I don't. I was like, "Oh, I guess that's normal." Like, so we work with a lot of young people that we actually just put out an album with them, written entirely by queer youth, which was really exciting and really fun.
Awesome.
And I know you are always looking for new music to listen to on your Instagram stories, so I'm gonna email you the album after.
Yes, please do.
But what advice do you have for queer young people who are having trouble accepting themselves as an artist or claiming that title? Like, when did you finally say like, oh, I'm not just making art, I'm an artist?
I will say that I think I came to that realization much younger. I think just because I was so different from other people and like having to try and figure out like a niche for myself to fit in, even in like elementary, middle school, high school, I've always been artsy. So I think for me, it was always just like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to grow up to be an artist. Like that was just always it for me. And then I would probably say like when I was finally like even like I'm a photographer, like when I would introduce myself as a photographer to people, was wow. I think when I was probably in college, for fashion, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. Like because I would do it on the weekends. I did a lot of photography on the weekends. And like when people like, what do you do for work? I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm a photographer. And like, it didn't like happen. Like I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to start saying I'm a photographer. It was just like something that I was like, okay, it is what I do for work. It's like what I'm doing for money. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a photographer. And then like from then I was like, okay, cool. Like it felt comfortable enough for me to start saying. So I was like, cool. I think it's just like, as far as like being comfortable saying it, I think, I don't know, it's kind of just got to own it. Like it does definitely feel uncomfortable in the beginning, especially if you're not monetizing it, because I do think there's a pressure to like monetize your art and like doing all these things. I just think like if you love it and you're enjoying it and it's something that like brings you so much joy and is a huge part of your life, like obviously like, you should like describe yourself as it. Like yeah, I mean, like I was even like singer friends I know. Quote, see, I even say singer friends. But like they have such a hard time when they're like, well, I'm not like making music. I'm just like, I like to sing or like on the side or whatever. But I think it's just with anything, everything's kind of like a journey, and you have to like figure out like your comfortability and that sort of thing, and eventually you will get there. But yeah.
Yeah, I like that you exist as so many different not only different types of art, but you do art for different things. Like you are a wedding photographer. You like also started on this like photography journey just for you to
Yeah.
experiment with gender. I'm wondering what is like the video or the piece of art that you're most proud of, like since starting this whole project in quarantine.
That's a good question. I think it's probably like a photo or like a photo series, and it's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing like Greek gods and stuff. As me.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun to do, and it's probably been like the most creative I've been in photography for a really long time. So I've really been enjoying that, and most of them I'm doing relatively femme, which I also really do enjoy as well. So I think those have been some of my like favorite things I've put out, and they've been the best received. But I'm like, they better be. I'm putting the most work into these
Yeah.
things. Like I'm shooting for hours. But yeah, I think those have been my most favorite, and I think my favorite shoot of those was probably the Aphrodite one, which was the first one I did, and then recently, it's not Greek, but I did an Adam and Eve one that I really, really liked as well.
We have one student who really likes the idea of like shipping and like especially shipping in like fictional or like biblical ways. Like you could ship like Harry and Draco together and just like
Oh yeah,
queerify things. So I love that you're like making Greek mythology gay, you're making Adam and Eve gay. I'm like,
yeah,
this is the end I need. Well, thank you so, so much for your time
of
today.
course.
This was really fun. And to any queer youth watching, we have free arts workshops every week, free for queer youth or allies ages 13 to 19. And if you just want a space to write and be celebrated as the artist you are, just like, you know, you've created that space for people on TikTok, Seth, stop by. It's really signups in our bio, and we'll definitely be in touch about spreading the word about you and maybe working on a dress together. That'd be really fun.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Good night, everybody. Thanks again,
Sweet.
Seth.
Goodbye. Thank you for having me.
Bye. See ya.